It's been Steam Racing Fest for the last week, and I wanted to do this as a live stream, but my internet service provider said, no, Simon, you will not have a stable internet connection. You shall not be live streaming. So here are 14 games that I wanted to play that I've never played before with their own unique demos, and here's my thoughts and impressions. We're kicking off with Stuntboost first, and this is a Micro Machines version of skateboarding where you play as two fingers going around on a skateboard trying to go as fast as you can through various different courses. Each course has gold, silver and bronze times, but then also an online leaderboard time if you cross a certain threshold. But what I really liked most about this, aside from the early 2000s grungy aesthetic, both from a graphic and a audio perspective, is that this game had really cool physics that made a lot of sense, but were different for each board. So you'd have a skateboard that allowed you to kind of pedal along at a certain speed, but then would enable you to jump. And landing those jumps would kind of give you momentum as you was kind of launching yourself off of ramps. But longboards didn't allow you to jump. Instead, you had to press and hold shift, reminding me of downhill skiing games where you kind of hunch down low so that you can then build momentum because you've made yourself smaller. And all of this combined with having to dodge everyday objects and a cool mechanic where in order to open doors, you have to meet and gaze into the eyes of different objects. And you do this by spinning around and moving your vision with the mouse control. And it reminds me, as the game suggests, like a first-person shooter game, because it's as if you're spinning around and kind of fragging people, but actually what you're doing is performing tricks on your skateboard instead. It just really held together exceptionally well. Very much enjoyed this, staying on my wish list. We'll be picking it up. Next up is Desert Race Adventures, and this takes the Oregon Trail effect of racing or rally games. You're not strictly racing in this game, but what you are doing is reacting to various different events and seeing how fast and far you can get on your rally. You'll have limited space in your rally truck, and you'll be able to pick a driver and a co-pilot. Each of them have their own stats and unique traits. And then it's up to the RNG gods to see what gets thrown your way. Will you be able to survive with enough food, enough spare repairs for your car, and so on and so forth? It felt very Oregon Trail rather than a racing game, but I quite like the setup and the aesthetic of it. This has intrigued me since the day it was announced because I've had it on my wish list for a while. It played out okay. I do wonder how in control you truly are, because there's only a certain amount of things that can happen, and because you've only got 3 spaces in your truck to kind of put things in. What was kind of missing with all of this was, where was I in my race? It just seemed like a survival of me against the road, and that's fine, but it lacked that whole race appeal. Still staying on my wish list though. I thought it was a really interesting game. Next up is SuperBikeGP 2D, and if you think this game looks familiar, then you've already seen of my channel the review of F2D Steer to Persevere, which is the Formula 1 equivalent of this, all by the same developer. The goal with this game is to provide ghost racing with online competitors, although there are racing against bots available. It's really about downloading ghosts and seeing you in a race against all of the online competitors. There's different tyres with different compounds that have different wear rates for you to then pop into the pits. That seemed to be played down quite a bit in this demo, because I was able to get to the end of 6-lap races with ease with the softest tyres, which meant that the mediums and the hards didn't really feel like they were worthwhile trying out. Alongside that, the other key feature here is that if you have corner cutting 3 times, it will send you on a Joker long lap around a track, which I thought was a cool addition and kind of marks it out a little bit from F2D. Everything else feels very similar, and what worked there I'm sure will work here as well. The physics were great. It feels very approachable and easy to pick up and understand and play. I'm looking forward to seeing where this game develops over time. Did run into a couple of bugs, but obviously this is a very early beta demo. Next up is Race Jam, and if ever there was a game to win a comedy award, this would be it. There's a mode in this called Chase Mode, but in the pictures it's called the OJ mode, and it's just got a car being chased by police down a motorway. Absolute chef's kiss. But that kind of humour resonates throughout every menu and every piece of driving that happens here. Now, Race Jam is a parody of sorts of 90s arcade racing, but it does it very well. And there's a cool key mechanic here, which is that you've got health and you've got boost, but the two can't coexist very well. So every time you charge up your engine to boost, it takes away about 20% of your health. And so you'll need to try and work out ways to recharge it, either through doing stunts or by sitting and holding the recharge button, but in doing so you then can't boost. And so you're trying to kind of yin and yang between the two, getting through various different boost pads, maybe hitting off some opponents and trying to make sure that you can kind of keep ahead of them. This all then charges up your on fire rating, which if you hit that, then puts you into top speed as well as regenerating health, so long as you don't hit anything. But what I really liked about this is the easy and approachable physics, a little bit floaty and skiddy, but consistently so. And I love the way how, like, there's a Mickey take of Sonic the Hedgehog as like a Green Hills Zone level in here. There's a NASCAR send up. There's all kinds of different things going on. It is really pitch perfect in the way how it does comedy, and for that reason alone it's a thumbs up, but it's really enjoyable to play too. Next up is Pretend Racing Cars 2, and I've already done a video review of the first one of the series and very much enjoyed that. What was fascinating with this one is that it brings day to night transitions, like weather effects, multi-car racing. It feels like a slightly more polished experience than what the original one was. However, as soon as it turned into night mode and any lights came on for the cars, the game ground to an absolute halt. And my PC is only a couple of months old and it is running very, very high-end games very easily, and it shouldn't be chugging along on a game of this nature. And so I hope that gets sorted over time, because the rest of the game is equally as soapy and skiddy but very moorish and addictive as the original one was, and I'm looking forward to seeing this develop over time. But it does need to work on how it can be less intensive on the GPU for a game that looks like it should be able to run on a potato but clearly doesn't. The next game on this list might well be my favourite one of the entire fest, and there's no vehicles involved. It's called Rocket Boots Mania. It's already out. I didn't know it was already out, and I've added it to my cart to buy before the fest is over, because this is parkour brilliance. But think of this as like parkour if it was Trackmania. You pick your username, you pick a country. Yes, there's a national leaderboards going on here. And then there's lots of different ways to run, slide, wall run, boost with your rocket boost shoes. And it's so brilliantly put together from a momentum perspective. And then there's like gliding zip rails and all kinds of stuff that just gets added on over time, dodging lasers. And there's a level editor, and there's online racing, because it's the online beta that was being put into the Racing Fest as it went along. It was fast, it was fluid, it just felt right. This is everything that I want from a parkour style racing game, and it feels like Trackmania at the same time. This just blew me away, and I know I'm just kind of going, it's great, it's great. It just worked perfectly. And so Rocket Boots Mania, I'm buying it probably as soon as I've finished recording this voiceover and structured the video. A game I won't be picking up though is MonoRace. This is, I think, probably built for VR first, but then this is the flat PC version that happens afterwards. And I really struggled with this because it expects you to move left and right with WASD controls, as well as shifting left and right on your mouse to tilt your mono bike and the kind of rider on it. And it just didn't work for me at all. That plus with the fact that the physics were just making me kind of catch weirdly bits of the floor everywhere and then throwing myself off into like weird hedges. It was just really painful to play and unresponsive, and I didn't enjoy my time with MonoRace at all, and it's not on my wish list. Schrott is on my wish list, but this took me a while to get used to what this game was all about as well, because the tutorial is not so helpful. In this game, you are auto-driving forward, trying to avoid most of the carnage and chaos and furniture that's on the screen, but anything that is destructible you want to drive through so that you can then collect resources. Those scrap resources can then be used to buy upgrades for your car as you're going across like a run, like a rally, for example. But there's all kinds of hazards in your way. You will lose health repeatedly, and then you'll slowly, as you level up, get more perks that enable you to maybe transfer over some of your previous upgrades to your next run, or get some additional skills like being able to jump, or being able to like boulder rally your way through a massive wall and get away with a massive smash once or twice. All of this was here and it works very well. I just wished that A, the tutorial was a little bit more obvious about how all of this all connects together, and B, I think sometimes there's too much of a visual overwhelm because you're having to smash through everything to therefore collect all of the resource. But that then blocks your vision and view as to what's immediately in front of you. And sometimes I felt like I just couldn't see what I was crashing into, rather than it being just a pure skill issue from my perspective. Still good fun though, and it's still staying on my wish list. Next up is Project TurboBlast, and I had great fun with this one. It reminds me a little bit of like an F-Zero style game, but it plays more like a Omni-Boost game. I'm not going to explain this very well, but this game is so full of boost pads, and the idea is for you to kind of navigate from boost to boost to boost to boost, whilst also charging up and triggering your own boosts in the gaps where there isn't a boost there. And you might need to kind of charge and dart through other opponents to smash them off, and then you get like aggression points as you go along. But what was cool about this is that it's not just about your position at the end of the race. It's also about all of those technical points of chaining up your boosts and kind of not smashing into the wall or other players or other things, or ending up in like a red zone on the track, which then deplenishes your points, because it all kind of gets multiplied together. So you have to be technically good as well as fast in order to succeed in Project TurboBlast. And I thought that was a unique and interesting spin on things that you don't really see very often. It handled relatively well. It felt like the hoverboard craft things was sometimes a little bit too understeery for the tracks where they wanted to kind of hairpin yourself back and forth a little bit. But outside of that, exceptionally playable, and I really like the retro like aesthetic of this too, because it was all going back to the like early to mid 90s, late 90s hip hop house, extreme cheesy like break beats. There's a certain vibe, and it was hitting it. A vibe that wasn't hitting quite so well for me though was Superpower Racing. And this game was fascinating because it's a top-down racer, and it felt like that should be an easy win for me. But what made this game quite tricky is that there's 3 different types of car. They don't feel balanced, and so one's too slow on the straight but too grippy in the corners. One drifts around everything and just skids everywhere, but because you can cut half the corners, that's kind of helpful until you need to do a hairpin, and then it just can't cope. And then the other one is much more around acceleration, which only works in certain tracks. And so it all kind of went together a little bit clunkily. Cars were kind of crashing into each other. It didn't feel very responsive to drive. And the boosts that you got through driving was through getting a slipstream, but that seemed wildly inconsistent car to car to car. And so there's something here that was okay, and it's staying on my wish list for now, but it's probably one of the weaker ones on this list because something just didn't quite gel for me with this game. And so I'm more just curious to see whether or not it just needs some polish and rounding off for it to feel better, or is it just I'm not enjoying the way how power-ups and just generally the way how this game handles works for me. A game that I have removed from my wish list and will not be touching at all is Resoraki though. This game I Swear is an absolute clone of a game that is already out on consoles, which was already a budget horrible title to begin with, because I've seen the exact same levels in a different game or that I've got on PlayStation. And it handles just as poorly here and it plays just as terribly, and I hated that game, and it was one of those horrific like 10-minute platinums, which I didn't realise it was at the time. I just thought it was a really cheap split screen multiplayer racer. Aha, once bitten twice shy, removed from my wish list. I know it's only 89p, but this is a clone game, do not touch it. Next up is Highway to Heal, and this is an ambulance driving game and somewhat of a medical minigame sim, because you'll be driving around your ambulance collecting patients and then doing some mini-games to operate some procedures on them, such as giving them injections or bandaging them or giving them like a blood pressure monitor. All of that kind of takes place with some very quick button presses here and there, but the vast majority of the game is you and your ambulance on the city roads, avoiding traffic, trying to get from A to B as quick as possible. It's basically ambulance crazy taxi from an isometric perspective. I quite enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good use of theming to try something new with a racing game, and I'm a sucker for medical games as well, so yay, let me have it. It's quite obviously aimed for not younger children, because I'm not going to say like under the age of 7, but it's got that kind of cozy-ish vibe to it that's going on in the background, so I'm not expecting any grannies to die in it. Highway to Heal, though, is definitely staying on my wish list. It was very enjoyable to play. Turbo Bullets was less enjoyable to play, though, and this is a vehicular combat style game, but the controls were so unresponsive and very confusing. I just didn't get it at all. You have 2 different types of weapons, but the ammo seems to be very limited on them. When it says that the ammo is being replenished, it didn't seem to happen, so that was a bit confusing. But also, all of the AI opponents seemed to kill themselves really, really quickly, meaning that I was just left with a police car chasing me around, hunting me to see whether or not the police car can then kind of kill what's left remaining, because something has to be there to try and stop you getting to the end of the game. This felt really unsatisfying to play because the cars or the vehicles just handled very unresponsively, sluggishly, but also quite soapy at the same time. The cars also felt too light for their own good, because they would just roll, like you'd look at it and it would roll and you'd be like, oh, okay. But also just, I wasn't quite sure how I was aiming and how all of that was working either. And some vehicles seemed to have guns that worked, but mine didn't. It was just messy. So I didn't enjoy Turbo Bullets at all, and that's not stayed on my wish list either. I've saved the best racing E-type game till last though, and it's called Exo Rally Championship. This is rallying on alien planets, and first of all, it looks gorgeous, from the giant moon in the sky to meteor strikes coming down and you're having to avoid, to like tornado dust winds going on. Each planet is, and each stage has different environmental issues. You can get like heat from the sun that will then